So far, we have learned all the four financial statements: income statement, statement of stockholders' equity, balance sheet, and statement of cash flows. And these four financial statements provide useful information for investors and creditors. To utilize this information, we usually construct some financial ratios by borrowing numbers from different financial statements to assess a company's financial profitability and risks. For the profitability analysis, here I introduce the activity ratios. Activity ratios reports a company's ability to generate sales from its economic resources or assets. In terms of this definition, the activity ratios you will see they are all skewed by assets. These are considered as the inputs, the economic resources, while the numerator represents the output, the sales. Yet for the inventory turnover ratio, it is different because to avoid the impact of markup, so we use cost of goods sold. The reason is before inventory are sold, it stayed on the book as an asset. But when they are sold, the same value will be recorded as expense while we remove it from the book, the assets account. So cost of goods sold and inventory book value, there's no markup issue. Markup means the inventory, if they are sold, they will be realized as revenue, right? While revenue represents the price of the goods. And there will be a difference between the price and the cost. The difference is markup. Different companies, the markup may be significantly different from each other. So to avoid this noise, we just use cost of goods sold as a numerator for the inventory activity ratio. Here we have included three activity ratios. The first one is overall assets turnover. The numerator is the sales, while the denominator is average balance of total assets. So the greater this ratio, that means the company utilize its assets more efficiently. For every unit of assets, the company can generate more sales. The companies who have very high assets turnover are those who pursue the volume of their sales. Examples are retailers and fast food restaurants. The greater assets turnover also indicate the company is more efficient. Instead of the total assets, we can investigate the activity ratio for each specific assets. The receivable turnover, we just change the denominator by using the average balance of accounts receivable. So it represents the company's efficiency in managing its receivables. So this ratio represents for each dollar or each unit of accounts receivable how much sales a company can generate. For sure, for these activity ratios, the greater, the better. But when we use the ratio, we should consider the industry fixed effect, because some industry, the turnover ratio will be very high. For example, retail industry, the turnover for their inventory are very high. But for some industry which is more capital intensive, their turnover ratio may be lower. Besides the activity ratio itself, we can make conversion to make it more understandable. So here we can convert the activity ratio to the number of days. Here we just use the accounts receivable turnover to divide the number of days in one calendar year, 365. Then we can convert to a number that represents a number of days. So this represents, on average, how many days takes the company to convert its receivable into cash. If I just assume the receivable turnover is 36.5, we know the result is 10. So what does this mean? It means the company's receivables can be converted to cash within 10 days. Okay, some receivables may be longer, some receivables may be shorter. So this represents how soon the company can collect the payments from its customers. So the greater turnover ratio, the lower number of days. Similarly, we can construct for the inventory turnover. Again, we use inventory turnover ratio to divide 365. Then we can get the average number of days the inventory stayed on the company's book. Again, if I use, for example, 100 as inventory turnover, which is very high, the result will be 3.65. Okay, so this represents the company can convert its inventory to cash, or the company can sell its inventory within 3.65 days, which is quite quick, right? It represents the company's inventory just stayed on the book no more than 4 days. If we study the profitability analysis, we should also learn about the profit margin ratio. To investigate the profitability, we can construct several financial ratios that are relevant. First is the profit margin on sales. So this is a ratio between the profits and the sales. The profits is the bottom line of the income statement, sales is top line. And this represents the margin of the company. So that represents the company's ability to generate profits from each dollar of sales. The greater profit margin, the better. That means the company can make more profits from each unit of sales. And the return on assets, or ROA, is defined as net income divided by average total assets. The next one, which is more meaningful to equity holders, is the net income divided by the book value of stockholders' equity, average book value of stockholders' equity. And you will find these two ratios, ROA and ROE, can be disaggregated into the following. Okay, so return on equity, we can disaggregate them into three financial ratios. Look, if we cancel this, it is net income divided by total equity. By this disaggregation, we find the return on equity is a product of these three. The product of profit margin, activity ratio, assets turnover, and equity multiplier, which represents the financial leverage of the company. The greater this ratio, that means the company is financed using more debt. This disaggregation is also called DuPont framework. A return on assets, net income scaled by average total assets, right? So we can disaggregate which is a product of profit margin and total assets turnover. So actually here, ROE is a product of ROA and the equity multiplier. So the three elements of ROE and two elements of ROA provide us a very powerful tool to analyze the company's profitability. I just use ROA as an example. The company improves its ROA through two different ways. One is to increase its profit margin. generate more profits from each dollars of sales. The other is increase its activity ratio. Utilize its assets more efficiently. Generate more sales from each dollars of investment or assets. For return on common equity, to increase ROE, the company can increase profit margin, or increase the activity ratio, or even increase the financial leverage, increase the debt financing. But this one is based on assumption the return on assets should be greater than the cost of debt. And if the company cannot generate return to cover its cost of debt, you will see increased financial leverage will reduce the company's ROE. As long as the company can maintain this, increased financial leverage will increase the wealth of shareholders. So here, based on the balance of inventory, beginning and ending balance 220,000, ending balance 185,000. We have cost of sales. Then we can calculate the inventory turnover, and then convert to number of days, 82.21. Yeah, so in this case, the company's inventory is quite slow. It takes the company to sell its inventory for 82 days, over 82 days.